was introduced to Star Wars at a young age, just like everyone else. I grew up watching the originals until the prequels came out, and then I remember my parents took me to go see The Phantom Menace, and I was just ecstatic about it. I thought it was the coolest thing ever. I thought it was, don't hate me for this, but I thought it was better than the originals. Just in the mind of a kid, you know, you're just like, ooh, cool droids and lightsabers, and it just looks more real or whatever. But then as you get older, you look at the stories and you're okay, the original's better, you know, stories. But they made a lot of toys, you know, for the prequel trilogies, and I was about between like 5 and 10 when they came out, and I just would collect the action figures and all the merchandising that I could, and that's what really got me into Star Wars, was that.
Master Plo Koon has requested our team to GNSS on a rescue mission. Are you ready, Master?
My process for writing the stories usually comes through soundtracks. You know, if I'm just like on a long drive, I turn on a soundtrack, and then suddenly just like I just think about like the film that the soundtrack is associated with, and then it slowly kind of turns into something that's more mine, you know, with the ideas, and like I just imagine the scene playing out to the soundtrack, and that's usually where it starts, and then I try to write that down on paper, and then it changes from there and just kind of grows into something that it's its own thing. That's the basic in a nutshell, but most of the writing process is a lot of just jotting down notes whenever I can. You know, if there's like a cool idea that I have while I'm working or while I'm driving, I try to just record it real quick, like, you know, voice speak it or write it down. And then when I have all those ideas together, you know, I kind of spread it out and start to write, and I just kind of pull these pieces together and see, okay, does this fit? Does that one fit? No, that doesn't. Save it for later. Okay, pull this one in. Perfect. It connects, and then it kind of creates the overarching story. Doing these fan films in 2020, my friends and I were really bored, just staying cooped up inside, so we went out back, you know, just to the backyard of our complex and just filmed a fight video for fun. It popped off on YouTube for what we felt like was popping off, and people were demanding more, and so we started to think about this a lot more long term. Okay, like, let's make a trilogy out of this. Pre and post-production are probably the hardest. I would say the most challenging to get it complete. The biggest thing to get started is funding, you know, and that really that's like a make or break if you can do it or not. And I would say that's the most challenging part, is finding the way to execute it on a very, very tight budget. And so far I feel like we've been doing pretty good. I'm kind of in charge of costumes, more like just the behind the scenes thing, but it's more other people that are executing it. I share them the vision, and they complete it. For Dawn of the Clone Wars, I showed the seamstresses pictures, and like, this is what I'm looking for, and they said, okay, got it, and they did that all themselves. I just provided the fabric, and they did it, and boom, it was all done. Jango Fett, for Dawn of the Clone Wars, was strictly my own costume, the one I personally wear for the 501st Legion, and that one, I put a lot into that, you know, trying to meet the CRL, which is the Costume Reference Library, for those who don't know. Try to meet the exact references, the exact look that you see in the films, and with that kind of exactness, it does require a lot more money, and so that was more my own personal money putting into that, because it was a multi-purpose costume, not just for the film, but for trooping, is what they would call it in the 501st Legion. It is very challenging to try and meet the fandom's expectations, or to basically just make a Star Wars fan film, Star Wars anything in general. There's just going to be quite the contrast of like people who really like it, people who really hate it, and it's just something I've come to accept after, I think, the second film that I did. You know, there were some dislikes on the first film, and I was just like, oh, you know, it happens. And then the second film, I got a lot more dislikes, just with some nitpicky stuff that was, it was offensive, but then I was like, you know what? If I'm going to continue making these fan films, I can't let this offense take me down, because then I'm just going to not do it at that point, and I want to do it. So I just accepted early on. But what I want to do is make it more unique and have my own story with my own characters, and then fill in the gaps with Lucasfilm characters like Jango Fett, Boba Fett, Darth Vader, the Emperor, and they have like their own little like appearances, but the story's not about them, it's about my characters, and that's what makes it more unique, is that it's in a way almost original, if that makes sense. Original story, original characters within the Star Wars universe is what I like to tell people.